What's up? What's up, everyone? How's it going? How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Just out here trying to check. Okay, there it goes. How's it going? This is the Conscious Chicano. Um, welcome, welcome. This is Conscious Chat number 45. Let me see here. Let me try to adjust this here. Conscious Chat number 45. It's a movie review on called The Killers of the Flower Moon. All right. So let's see here. Let me just adjust this here. Trying to get how's it going? Casual conversation with G and A. Let me try to put my comments here so I can read you guys. So I got myself a mic finally. Um, can you guys hear it? Gloria, I think it's Gloria. How's it going? Can you hear my mic? Um, just say yes if you can. Um, test. Yeah. Well, I think you can, right? Just say hello. Say yes. I just want to see if you can hear from your end. Um, oh, okay, cool, cool. It's good. All right. So, yeah, just trying to get adjusted to this stuff. Let me see if you can hear a sound effect. There you go. Got a little clap there, right? So, welcome to Conscious Chat number 45. It's a movie review. I've been wanting to do this. I kind of like haven't been on here for a while, but I saw this movie, um, and right when it came out, it was called Killers of the Flower Moon. And let me see if I can actually show the little trailer. Let me screen share this. Trying to get used to all this here, the screen sharing stuff. So let's see here. Um, screen share. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna show a little trailer, and then I'm gonna stop the screen share and go into my presentation. And after that, you could join me if anybody if they want to discuss this film. It's gonna get pretty deep today, so because the film covered a lot of topics. It's really a really good film. Um, so let me just do the little trailer for you guys to check out. Here it goes. All right, here it goes. Let me play this.
Whose land is this? My land. Well, our war hero has arrived. You made a good choice coming back here. Osage are the finest, wealthiest, and most beautiful people on God's earth. They outsmarted everybody. They have the say who gets the oil. Son, I got a question. You like women?
That's my weakness.
Well, we mix these families together, and that estate money flows the right direction. It'll come to us.
Shomikasi. That's how you are.
I don't know what you said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
Why did you come here?
I work with my uncle.
You scared of him?
Oh, he's the nicest man in the world. The Osage,
Their time is over. We got to take back control of our home.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
We have so many deaths we've lost count.
It's just bad luck.
Seems more like an epidemic than bad luck to me.
Osage is dying by the enemy. Do not let them die alone.
Evil surrounds my heart.
You gotta pick a side.
don't even know if you love me anymore.
Of course I love you.
And kill these men who killed my family.
Did your wife say who she was most afraid of?
Don't do something you're going to regret for the rest of your life.
I ain't got nothing but regret.
All right. Okay. Let's get back on here. So, yeah, that was the trailer for Killers of the Flower Moon. I saw it. It was pretty good. Um, really good, insightful film. Robert De Niro and others too. Um, so yeah, let's get into the. Oh shoot, hold on. Let me just. Yeah, so let me get into the pretty good points here. So let me see. I have it on the whole film, so I kind of like wrote it out. So um let's see here. The movie Killers of the Moon explores a dark chapter in history through the lens of Native American experiences. From a Native perspective, the film sheds light on the historical injustices inflicted upon indigenous communities. The narrative delves into the theft of native lands, a painful reality where European descendants exploited legal loopholes and employed deceitful tactics to wrongfully claim territories. The film illustrates how some European settlers married native individuals not of genuine connection, but as means to seize control of valuable lands. Additionally, the movie touches on the impact of medical interventions on Native communities, the portrayal of medical injections as a tool to harm speaks to the systemic oppression faced by indigenous people, highlighting the vulnerability of their communities to external influences. So, the introduction of Western diets portrayed in the film is another aspect that mirrors the historical reality of cultural erosion and its health consequences. The forced adoption of unfamiliar foods disrupted traditional diets, leading to adverse health effects on native populations. The film subtly hints at conspiracy and manipulation through the lens of Masonic schemes, depicting depicting a broader narrative of calculated efforts to exploit and control indigenous lands. This aspect adds a layer of complexity to the story, suggesting that the exploitation of native communities was not merely a result of individual greed, but part of larger orchestrated plans. Um, Killers of the Flower Moon thus serves as a stark reminder of the historical injustices endured by Native Americans, weaving a narrative that underscores the multifaceted ways in which their lands, health, and culture were systematically targeted and exploited. So I just wanted to read that a little bit right there. It's just a little summary of what the film was all about, and I like to make comments on this little thing that I just read here. Um, and let's see here. I'm just trying to recall um the movie because it's been a while since I saw it. Um, so in a sense, you had European settlers coming in as a specific tribe mentioned in the movie. And matter of fact, people think it just only happened to that tribe, but it happened like all throughout the Americas. Whether it was the British, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, you know, the French. You had the French in Canada, you had the British in the United States, and a lot of the so-called Latin America, the Spaniards, and then you also have in like in Brazil, the Portuguese. A lot of these guys, when they came and settled the Americas, uh, the same thing occurred amongst indigenous nations out here. And what happened is you had the European settlers that came, and once they settled on these lands, they established their communities next to native communities, and what they wanted was basically the land and the resources, and they were using different tactics to obtain the land and resources. And a lot of times when you hear in history, oh, a native woman fell in love with the European man and married him and stuff, and uh, and they lived happily ever after. um, in reality, most of the time, what occurred was a lot of European men raped indigenous women, forced them into marriage, and under threats and abuse and everything. um so that was the reality of a lot of these so-called marriages out here. And speaking from, like, say, a Chicano Mexican culture, you could say that a lot of the machismo, the abuse of women, has roots in European colonization. Um, especially when, like, in Mexico, in so-called Latin America, a lot of the Spaniards were beating indigenous women and raping them and abusing them and forcing them even into marriage. And so this was happening frequently, uh, throughout so-called Latin America, and it even happened in the United States as well. So amongst the British, Canada too, the French, Brazil, the Portuguese, you know, everywhere, every colonized nation, basically went through that. And so this film is really good because it highlights that stuff. At first I was hesitant to watch it because I was like, okay, is this another romanticization of an indigenous woman falling in love with a European or a Spaniard or a British man or something like that. And I remember in previous films, like, you would see a lot of these so-called fake love stories, like that cartoon, The Road to El Dorado. I was actually involved in protests back in the day when I was in the Mexica movement and protesting The Road to El Dorado. It's kind of like a cartoon movie, but it was like making fun of indigenous people and making it seem like an indigenous woman would fall in love, that falls in love with a European man, or you have this so-called Pocahontas type stories, or this Malinche type stories, where the indigenous woman falls in love with the European man, and you know, and then they live happily ever after, right? Stuff like that. So, uh, but actually, the opposite occurred in most cases, and you know, the opposite actually occurred. Let me see here. Something's going on here. So, oh shoot, what happened here? Yeah, so I'm actually looking at this from another screen. So, um, yeah, so the opposite actually occurred. A lot of Europeans, when they colonized the Americas, they forced themselves on the women. You know, they raped, they abused, they forced them into marriage and all that. They had concubines and this and that, etc. Um, so this movie just highlights what the Europeans have been doing to native communities for a very long time, and it's just not just it wasn't just that particular nation. Um, so it was actually a good film. I suggest you guys go check it out. And it reveals a whole lot of stuff there. A whole lot of stuff. Basically the European men were, using various tactics to take the indigenous land, And one of the main fact approaches in taking indigenous land was to marry an indigenous woman, and in particular, an indigenous woman who had high rank in the nation, who had access to the land, the resources, and everything. So a lot of those kind of indigenous women were targets for European men to so-called marry and the marriage was most of the time was not genuine. It wasn't love. It was just uh manipulation, and the goal was to for a European man to get married to an indigenous woman so he could eventually inherit the land and the resources, basically take over. um and the film actually shows all that, and it shows these European men using, marriage to acquire the land and the resources. And once they get married to the indigenous woman, they basically, they even use medical, um, manipulation where they get the woman injected, you know, with in, or even take like certain prescriptions and injections to basically get the woman sick, you know, and eventually die. And also, it reveals, that kind of medical scheme, which has a long history. I can't say too much here on YouTube because you get banned here, but you guys know what I mean, the whole injection stuff, and as we kind of pass through that, they had everyone, take those jabs. I can't say certain words here, but they had a lot of people around the globe taking these jabs, and a lot of people right now are still suffering from those jabs, and the mainstream media is not talking about it. People have died from those jabs and have been injured by those jabs. But that film actually shows the basically the medical mafia, using injections and overdosing native women with you know prescriptions to basically so they'll basically die, and the European male inherits all the land and resources. And another aspect of is it's genocide basically. This was what was their approach to kill off the native people and take their land, was not only through medical manipulation, but also it revealed that there was like the Western diet. They they would get natives um, on basically eating unhealthy food, and especially the Western diet, and then they would end up with diabetes or all kinds of different chronic diseases, or really lethal diseases. We have high epidemic of chronic disease in amongst natives, amongst brown people as well in general, Chicanos, Mexicans, and everything, especially in the United States, where we're eating a lot of these Western diets, and it's causing a lot of, sugar diabetes, um, heart problems, cancer, a lot of these chronic diseases and everything. So, at me, I've researched a lot of this Western diet stuff, and ever since they colonized us with this Western diet, a lot of our people have become very unhealthy. And that film actually shows that the woman there was, she started eating the Western diet, and her health started deteriorating. Plus, they were injecting her and giving her these prescription drugs, where she eventually got sick. Actually, she got sick. Oh, she didn't die. Okay, let me recall that. She almost died, but they actually that in order for her to not die, they somebody actually intervened and saw what they were trying to do, and stop the injections and the prescription drugs, and and she survived barely. Um, but yeah, I'm just trying to recall this film because I saw, like, I think it was like right when it first came out, all the details. But definitely they use manipulation through medical intervention and through their health. I mean, through their foods, to colonize the indigenous person and to basically kill them off. And they use marriage, the European man would go after indigenous women who had high status, high rank, um, access to resources, and they would infiltrate the nation, and they'll cover it up as though it's a marriage, and when in fact they use trickery, manipulation to take over the land and the resources. um, and the history books will even go into, oh, native women marrying European men, and they'll give you this fake love story, or you see the Hollywood always doing that through Pocahontas type, themed movies and everything, and they don't go into the nitty gritty details of real history, how European men were raping indigenous women, and abusing them and taking their land and this and that, etc. So that was that aspect. And there's another interesting aspect there, which I really liked. Robert De Niro was he was he was kind of like a schemer. Like, he's actually got this younger European male to on this agenda, and he was doing this quite often in the native community. Robert De Niro being he's representing like a European older male, and he was actually, that was his agenda. He was advocating that European men marry indigenous women to take the land and resources. And what's interesting is that Robert De Niro in this movie is a Freemason. I was like, wow, they put that in the movie. I was like, this is crazy. And so there's actually a scene where they're in a Masonic lodge, and you see all the checkerboard floor and this and that. But yeah, they use manipulation, and schemes and all that. It's kind of like a conspiracy, right? It's like a plot, yeah, to undermine the native communities. And this is exactly what they would do. You had these secret societies, these European secret societies, scheming to basically undermine the native communities and to take their land and resources. And that's been happening. You see this kind of stuff happening even early colonization. You had a lot of secret societies involved in the early colonial days. A lot of the funding of the people that funded the colonizers were actually secret societies with money, and especially from Europe, and a lot of these guys that came to the establish themselves in these so-called Americas were part of secret societies. So even the founding of America was based on secret societies. You have like movies like National Treasure that kind of water it down, but it reveals somewhat how a lot of the presidents were part of secret societies. And a lot of these guys in these secret societies are not only like, Freemasons, and they're also occultists, they're white supremacists. They owned black slaves. They had native slaves as well. They were committing genocide. They were taking the land, using various tactics, in their deceptive manipulation, in order to have power and wealth. And this movie was great in revealing that, you know, uh, kind of like the Freemasonics conspiracy to take native land, and advocating, European males to go and target indigenous women who have access to the land and resources through lineage, and basically plotting to, you know, speed up the death of, you know, indigenous women so they can inherit the land and resources. So, wow, this was an amazing movie. Pretty good stuff there. Um, and let's see here. I wanted to see what else. So yeah, it even shows how um yeah, they used various tactics, legalities to basically take the land. They used like prescription drugs and injections, even the Western diet. You had Masonic plots and everything, schemes. So I definitely advocate that people go see this movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. Really good for you, Chicanos, you brown folks out here, native folks out here. Go check out that. And it just didn't happen with that tribe either. It happened throughout all of the Americas. Really insightful. You see an aspect of colonization there. Um, if you want to actually get deeper into colonization, read a book called American Holocaust by David E. Stannard. That was a pretty good one. Stolen Continents. That's another one. There's a bunch of them books out there. Um, but yeah, you could see, you know, colonization was pretty bad for natives out here. Me, I'm also native as well. Chicano, most of us Chicanos, a lot of us Mexicans have native blood in us. I definitely have so-called Native American heritage as well. So this is why I highlight a lot of this, these kind of topics and everything. But yeah, it's just, you see that, this colonization is pretty deep, very deceptive, and excellent film. Like, if you guys want, um, a little introduction to the various tactics that Europeans use to take the land and resources, and you got to think about it, like, look around and you see, most of the people running the United States and a lot of these, nations in the, so-called Americas. You go to the rich communities and you see the people in power and all that, and owning the land and all the businesses and everything. And you'll see most of them are of European descent, you know, and you have to ask yourself, and look at most of the workers, right? All the labor, right? All the ones that are maintaining, say, a corporation, or the whole infrastructure of the nation, and as usually brown folks, right? Native folks, right? And you got the Europeans at the top. It's kind of like a caste system and everything. So, and I remember reading on Mexican history, especially with the Mexicas, and the Spaniards were doing the same thing too. They were basically marrying into the, I guess, the families that were involved in the communal rule of, of the Mexicas during that time, and a lot of the Spaniards were marrying into that lineage, and we see that was a tactic, to basically have control over the people, over the nation, over the lands and resources and everything. So, um, definitely, you know, that was their tactic, and you understand why a lot of European descendants now have a lot of the wealth, a lot of the power in many of these colonized nations out here. And they'll always try to throw a little monkey wrench at you. Oh, there's some brown man or some black man or some other non-white person. There's some that are rich and wealthy and in high positions of power, stuff like that. Yeah, very few exceptions, and exceptions don't make the rule, right? Even if it's a few numbers, right? That's basically a small percentage, right? And where in fact you got most of the Europeans in charge of you know a lot of the wealth out here and resources and political power and everything. So that's what happens during colonization. But yeah, definitely excellent movie. I suggest going and seeing it. Um, and definitely. So let me see. Guess that's the end of the presentation there. Um, Let me put a little cheer there. Let's see here. There you go. Hopefully you guys heard that cheer. um, so let's see. Let me respond to some comments. If you actually are seeing this or you're in my little chat, you want to come and join me and discuss this movie, feel free. Otherwise, I guess I'll just end it. But let me see. Let me just show this right here. So yeah, she commented. This is Gloria from Casual Conversation. She goes, yes, it's a good. Basically, it's a good movie. Yeah, she saw it. So yeah, definitely really good movie. Let's see here. But she also said this right here. She said it was a sad movie. Yeah, it's the reality. It was a sad movie. Um, but that's the reality of history out here. You know, and we gotta address this whole history, this whole issue. Um, let's see here. Just trying to get back on here. So yeah, we gotta know about this history and address it, confront it, and make it known to the world. We see this colonization, stuff like this even happening right now around the world. It's let's see here. Colonization, it gets very deep, when you see that it happens around the world throughout history, and it's a sad aspect of reality out here. And this is what happens. You have conquerors and the conquered, and like for instance, right now, you see what's going on in Palestine and Gaza right now, and Israel. The European descendants of Europe. Colonizing the Middle East and pushing off the indigenous Palestinians off their land and using various tactics and manipulations to basically take over the land and resources. And one of their major tactics is the media. They want to portray the Israelis want to portray themselves as victims all the time, and they want to portray the Palestinians as the bad people, right? And they'll take the Bible out of context and even theologically justify themselves, right? And they've been doing this ever since the state of Israel ever since it's been established, and you can see how they're using various ways of manipulation to basically ethnic cleanse the Palestinians and to push them off their land so they can obtain the land and resources and build their whole fancy hotels and their resorts and all that, and build their own houses and everything. So, yeah, that's an aspect of colonization that we have right now in modern times. And it happened with the natives here too, where the Europeans came, established themselves here, killed a lot of natives and took the land and resources and went and established their, fancy hotels and acquired a lot of real estate, established their corporations, their businesses, their governments, and their fancy hotels and resorts and all that stuff. And then they claim that, oh, they're victims of reverse racism, right? A lot of times the perpetrators, right? The colonizers always claim they're the victim all the time, when in fact the reality is the colonized have been the victims, and a lot of times their voices are never really heard. It's very rarely, even in the history books, in the education, the media, and all that. So Western, manipulation is that they'll rewrite history. They'll present, you know, through their media, their radio, their whatever means, their perspective, but the indigenous perspective is rarely heard. Um, and there's a lot of people that don't know much about the indigenous, you know, Holocaust. You know, I was actually surprised that a lot of people don't even know that the worst genocide, ethnic cleansing, the worst Holocaust that ever happened has been the indigenous Holocaust. And if you can go around the world and combine all these other genocides and Holocausts together, and it won't even get close to the amount of genocide and Holocaust that has occurred to the indigenous people. They approximate the number of like around 100 million that have died due to colonization of indigenous people by the Europeans. Approximately 100 million. Wow, that's way more than say that the so-called Jewish Holocaust, the African Holocaust, the Armenian Holocaust. Um, you could even combine all those numbers, and it doesn't even come close to 100 million. So, if anything, us brown folks, us native folks out here, we should be out here, shouting out to the whole world. Look at what you Europeans have done to our people. You know, look at what you have done, and just think about it. We have in the so-called United States. most of the Europeans occupied all these lands and still own a lot of this land, and they pushed off a lot of the natives to plots of land that are not really resourceful. Mainly like out in the desert, out in the boonies, right? On reservations, they put a lot of us brown folks in positions of poverty, and a lot of us brown folks, native folks, end up either on a reservation, poor and broke, or in some ghetto or barrio out here, and usually we're the poor or working class, working for their businesses, their corporations, right? Building their empire, their wealth, right? Working for their governments where they're in control of everything, the resources. So this is the reality out here. This is the reality. You could try to sugarcoat it or explain it away and all that, but if you're a brown person, you're a native person, you got to know about this history. Got to know and understand, how things came to be. You got to understand history. And and you know, and so a lot of times out here, people just want to talk about black and white issues, right? And it's like, where's the brown perspective on this? Where's the native perspective? A lot. I was actually talking to somebody about this. Like, how come it's just all you hear about is the black and white perspective, but you hardly hear anything about the brown perspective, the native perspective, And one of the reasons that we figured out was that basically uh European descendants don't want to address the brown and native issues because there's consequences to that. That means that they have to give the land back. They have to give the resources back. They don't want to do that, you know. So they'll rather address, what they've done to Africans, right? Before they'll do that for the native or the brown folks here, you know. So yeah, and that's why you'll see just white people basically, you know, talking about the black slavery or the Jewish Holocaust or Armenian Holocaust and everybody else's, but they would you will hardly hear them talk about what they've done to natives and what they how they benefited from it, what they done to the Chicanos, the Mexicans, and how they benefited from it, right? And you hardly hear about those issues right there. So, and this is why there's consequences, right? You know, and they don't want to address, you know, what they've done to our people, to the brown folks, the native people of these lands, and because there's consequence to that, and yeah. So this is why you just hear all the time the black and white perspective, and that's why I'm on here too. I'm on here on YouTube. I actually, returned. I'll be doing more little videos here, and I know there's a lot of censorship here on YouTube, so I can't get too deep. But this, these kind of issues, we needs to be heard. And the brown perspective, the indigenous perspective, and you go all over Rumble and YouTube and all this social media, and all you hear is basically white and black perspectives, right? Um, but you rarely hear about the brown perspective. So I encourage you, some of you brown folks, native folks out here, you know, start doing podcasts, start making videos, go on your social media, start talking about brown issues. Let the world know about you, what's going on, and it's always good to build a community around that too. That way you you influence the brown people, to really think critically about certain topics, what is happening. And there's so many topics to talk about. That's why, like, I even do this, like, even a little movie review. It just there's a lot of topics here within certain movies. And, like, for example, Killers of the Flower Moon right here. This is a really good movie. It addresses a lot of native issues. The genocide, the colonization, land theft, and resources. How the Europeans use various tactics to take the land and resources through so-called marriage, Masonic, plots, to take the land and resources, through medical injections, through the Western diet to kill off the native population, um, just various means and tactics to basically exterminate the native populations and to take their land and resources. And the Europeans been doing this for a very long time, ever since they colonized the Americas, and they still do it to this very day. And they expanded their colonization to what's called imperialism, where they gone to other nations now, and they're doing the same thing, right? uh they team up with other nations, like, for example, what's going on in the Middle East right now. The United States teaming up with Israel to colonize a lot of the Arab nations, surrounding Arab nations around them, and to expand the greater Israel agenda. And Israel also being in cahoots with the United States and a lot of Western nations out here. So a lot of these Western nations out here doing the same thing, colonizing um, other nations for their lands and resources, for their commerce too. Um, just a lot of things. But that's what it ultimately, that's the agenda right there. That's the conspiracy, right? People say there's no such thing as a conspiracy. Just look at history. History is full of conspiracies. You got a certain people with position of power, and wealth, and weaponry and military and this and that. And they plot, and they plot against other people throughout the world, throughout the especially weaker nations that are not as militarized or not as wealthy, and they plot against them, and they basically undermine them, and take over their land and resources, and actually ethnic cleanse them. It's been happening throughout history. And so there is a conspiracy, right? There is a conspiracy. And these people try to deny that, right? They try denying that, and it's a fact of history. Just go read a lot of these history books out here, like American Holocaust by David E. Standard, Stolen Continents. There's a whole bunch of other ones. I won't get into all the list of them. Um, but yeah, definitely. Anyways, well, if you guys have any questions, I know there's some people watching this. If you want to come down into the chat, ask me a question, or write down a question or something, or comment. Um, or if you even want to join me on discussing these topics right here, feel free. And if not, I'll just pretty much end it. Let me see here. So yeah, definitely. You know, this is a these are deep issues here, and this is something to think about out here. And it's like, it's not only just a native issue, but it's just a global colonial issue as well. You know, And you see, you like I mentioned, you see what's happening to the Palestinians right now. You know, mass genocide. You guys get a chance, find me on Twitter. I actually posted my invitation on my comments section here. And even as I end this video, go into the details right there. I click a link. Go add me on Twitter X. Man, they're exposing. I'm just retweeting so much information, but they're exposing what's going on. On the whole Israel Palestine issue, and they're Israel's committing so many crimes against humanity and atrocities right now. The Western media is not covering it, and they're trying to portray the Israel as the victims and making Palestine look like the bad guys and everything. But if you go to Twitter X, it's actually showing the opposite. And they show you evidence, video footage and pictures and all that. It's very gruesome. And the more you see, Israel is like, man, they're just corrupt to the core. And it's just you can't believe that this is happening in modern times. You would think that have become more civilized, but no, you see a lot of barbarism still happening. You know, crimes against humanity. And nobody's doing anything to stop Israel from committing, genocide, ethnic cleansing on Palestinian people. And for you Christians out here watching this, there's Palestinian Christians being murdered and, pushed off the land, and there's a lot of genocide, and they're bombing Christian churches and all that too. Some of the earliest Christian churches that have existed, so you guys, need to wake up, man, because I see a lot of complicity amongst the Western churches out here. They don't talk about this. They cover it up, and a lot of them are, Zionists, and they support Israel no matter what they do, you know. And it's just amazing what's happening out here. But if you go on Twitter X, whoa, they're exposing a lot of stuff there. And I'm retweeting stuff. Add me. It's Conscious Chicano. You'll find me there. It's KONSISOUS, and then Chicano with an Xicano. Actually, let me just highlight this real fast. Let me show it to you, my little handle here. Um, so that's I kind of wrote that there, but and you can find me right there, twitter.com, Conscious Chicano. Let me just hide it there. So yeah, they're exposing a lot, man. There's so many people exposing this whole issue. And I just see that as I just relate it to what has happened with the native people. Now, you got people out here trying to say, "Oh, don't be comparing the Palestinian, what's happening over there with the Native Americans." I heard some ignorance like that on social media. I think it was on TikTok or something like that. I'm like, "What the heck?" Like, these guys are just plain out ignorant, you know? Yeah, there are some differences between what's happening with the Palestinians and the natives, right? The natives actually are have suffered the worst genocide and ethnic cleansing in the history of the world. 100 million approximately, right? The Palestinians, the amount is lower, right? But even if it's lower, we still have to be concerned. We have to be concerned of what's happening. We have to, care for fellow humans out here, Um, but there might be a little difference here and there, but you could find a lot of similarities on this whole issue. you could see like what the Europeans did to the natives is exactly what the what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. And I've actually dug deep into this whole issue and read books on it. And a lot of times it's the European colonizers that are going to Israel and claiming that's their land and all that, and pushing off the indigenous Palestinians off their land. And they're using various tactics, genocide, ethnic cleansing, um, you know. And so those are the parallels. Europeans, what they did to the natives, very similar to what the European Israelites are doing to the indigenous Palestinians. So there's a lot of similarities there. So people out here saying you can't compare them, they're different and all that. That's just a bunch of nonsense right there. They don't know what they're talking about. Or they do know what they're talking about. They're just trying to deceive you, so you won't be against, the Zionist agenda, right? So yeah, and and then I seen some folks are saying, that's not our issue. We just stick to the indigenous issue only, right? That's it, right? Just indigenous people, and that's it. Well, I think that's just plain out ignorant too. Like, um, it's basically, we're all, basically dealing with the same enemy, right? So what's happening with the Palestinians has also, it's the same beast system that, is persecuting and oppressing the Palestinians, has also persecuted and oppressed native people as well. And you can see it even like the whole Zionist agenda, the Zionist theologies that they've constructed. Early on in European colonization, um, when the so-called European Christians, I say they weren't even real Christians, but by name they claimed they were Christians, right? Because if you're a true follower of Christ, you're not going to be committing genocide, taking people's land and enslaving them, right? But there's somebody said it's never been about religion. It's what it's been about was resources and land, right? But they do twist religion around and corrupt it, intertwine it with their white supremacy or their Zionism to try to justify themselves, right? And um, so that's what they do. And so the Europeans, I found out when they colonized the native people here, they not only used you know they intertwined Christianity and they corrupted it, and they intertwined it with white supremacy, and you got destiny, the doctrine of discovery, but a lot of that's all rooted in Zionist theology. And Zionist theology is actually, um, it's even what they do is they take the Old Testament out of context and they twist it around and they corrupt it as well. So it's been happening amongst, ever since Israel has been established. They take the Old Testament out of context and they use it for genocide and ethnic cleansing. And the Europeans did the same thing when they came to the Americas. For Israel, they did it for the Israelites only in modern times, right? But the Europeans, when they colonized the Americas, they did the same thing, but they made themselves the chosen peoples, right? And so the Israelites called themselves the chosen people, but in modern times, but then they've been doing that for a long time, um, but then when the Europeans colonized the Americas, they called themselves the chosen peoples too, the civilized, right? and he used this kind of chosenness, this Zionist theology, and uh, appropriated that kind of thinking and theology to themselves, and they created, justifications such as manifest destiny and the doctrine of discovery to basically justify themselves in taking native land and resources and all that. And just just to let you guys know, you have to know that there's a distinction between what Jesus authentically taught and was all about, all his actions, what he said, his behavior. Everything he did was totally the opposite, and was actually against the Pharisaic Zionist theologies, even the white supremacist so-called Christian manifest destiny, doctrine of discovery. All that stuff was corrupt religion right there. And this is not what Jesus was all about. This is what the gospel was is not all about any of that. So just make a distinction that, you know. So, and this is what a lot of brown folks, native folks don't get, especially when they're on this decolonization. They want to paint all of Christianity as bad and corrupt, and that's not true. Like what Jesus authentically taught was all about was was basically the opposite of colonization. Is actually decolonization from the evil kingdom of these worlds, right? The corruption of this world, the satanic rule of this world, right? Jesus was teaching, and he was all about decolonization from this, and in basically inheriting the kingdom of God and the Jesus way. And the Jesus way was the opposite of what the world was all about, right? The world is all about, materialism, all about, oh, me, myself, and I, and it's all about, being rich, and at the, doing whatever you um doing whatever it takes to become rich, even if it's like stepping on other people, right? And everything. So the kingdom of God is not even like this. It's not like the kingdoms of this world where you have a king who's selfish, and it's all about himself, and he has like all his serfs under him, right? Or you have a oligarchy of rulers, and they have all their exploited labor and all that. Basically, you have what's called the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and all that. You have like a caste system, right? The Europeans at the top and people of color at the bottom. Jesus was not about any of that. And you see even when Jesus was on earth, um, even poor folks were part of his ministry. People with no status. Jesus told, in the Great Commission to go out and preach the gospel, and heal the sick, set the captives free, help the orphans, the basically the downtrodden, the poor, and all that, the rejected and everything. So Jesus and his kingdom was the opposite of the kingdoms of this world. But yeah, we had this whole thing where man corrupts a lot of things, and even their interpretations of the Bible, they corrupted it. And so that's why you have to know the distinction between what Jesus was all about and his kingdom, which was love, peace, compassion, you know, um, you know, love God all with all your mind, heart, soul, and love one another. And though loving God and loving one another, love actually is not corrupt, right? Godly love is not corrupt. And if you're full of God's love, you're not going to be committing genocide. You're not going to be enslaving people and taking their land and using all these schemes to undermine people. If you call yourself a true follower of Christ, you're not going to be doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so just be aware, this the same thing that's going on with the Palestinians and what happened to the natives and still happening to this very day because colonization is still occurring. Um, a lot of similarities. And for those brown folks and native folks say, "Oh, that's not our issue, the Palestinian issue." It is. It's universal. It's global. It's the same beast system. So we have to, join with our other, other oppressed people and exposing this beast. And doing our best to educate people about this beast and even influencing society to not support this kind of stuff, not to advocate for it, not to support it. If you're a Christian, don't support this Zionist agenda that's in the churches. If you're attending a church like that, then I suggest you find another church that doesn't support Zionism. Or if you're in a church like that, maybe influence people, say, hey, I don't agree with this Zionism, and even talk to the leadership or the pastor or whoever is in charge, right? And have a discussion, dialogue with them and see if they're willing to change their mind and educate them on the issue. But you know, it's also important that we influence others too. And this is why I'm on here too. I'm here. There's people that are gonna see this video and maybe they'll think about these topics. They'll think about, oh, you know, they they might say, oh, the Palestine issue is not that has nothing to do with natives and Chicanos and all that. They'll see this video and now rethink their position and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know, uh, this same beast is basically causing havoc all throughout the world, right? It's also ultimately it's the kingdom of Satan. People are ruled by what is it called? Principalities in high places, right? There's a spiritual realm, right? It's not just a physical realm. There's a spiritual realm manipulating the world, right? And there's an evil. There's as Christians say, it's the satanic kingdom of the world, right? It's Satan and his demons, right? And 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 it's manifested through humans. And you can see what's going on in this world, right? This world is corrupt, and you see the genocide that's happening, the atrocities. Yeah, it's gruesome. It's just mind-boggling. If you go on Twitter, X right there, go click on that link and everything. Find me on there, Conscious Chicano. Man, it's just shocking at what's happening out here. And then you got people supporting this. You got this United States government. A lot of them are supporting this Congress. You got this Hollywood Zionist media, Zionist government. You got this Zionist churches and all that still supporting this, and you know, and this is how I kind of see, like, okay, the same thing is happening to Palestinians has also occurred with natives and Chicanos out here. You know, you see in this film right here, Killers of the Flower Moon, big time colonization, right? And and you see just some aspects of it. How they manipulate and deceive and orchestrate and conspire. Um, to undermine people for power, wealth, you know, and resources. Anyways, well, I guess nobody came in and joined or asked any questions, so I'll just leave it as that. I've been on here for quite a while. But anyways, if you're finished seeing this video here, feel free to like and share this and read the details. If you want to get a hold of me, go on Instagram. I mean, go to my details there, and I have some Instagram links there. Send me a message, add me. If you want some information on colonization and indigenous Chicano perspectives, I could actually give you a whole list or a bunch of videos or discussions, and good information. You want to learn about Zionism? I actually have a Rumble account. Um, Go click on that Rumble link in the description, and oh man, I got tons of information on this whole Zionist stuff. Just click on that Rumble link there, and you'll find tons of video. Just scroll through all those channels, and you'll see a lot right there. And add me on Twitter X. I'm retweeting a lot of stuff. Oh man, a lot of gruesome information, but I don't want to be a what's called a Debbie Downer, but that's the reality that's happening out here. So we have to see reality for what it is, and warn others about it, so they become conscious, become aware of what's happening out here, because the Western media is not telling you the truth out here. And they'll either not talk about it, they'll cover it up, or they'll mix truth with lies, and they'll manipulate the whole thing. So just be aware that they're good at that. They've been doing that ever since colonization, through their education, their media, and influences. But yeah, definitely. Anyways, well, this is the Conscious Chicano, and I like to say, don't be woke, be conscious, and go spread that consciousness. Anyways, I have a good day, and I'll see you next time.